Hey everybody, I want to talk about Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, by the way. Mother's Day, like anything else, has no objective meaning so much as it will mean for us and to us, however we hold it, whatever we see in it. And a lot of what Mother's Day has become in our modern society is a day to send your mom flowers, to call your mom, to take your mom to brunch, and so forth. This is typical of a lot of what has happened in this society, where we have lowered ourselves, where the whole society has devolved to the lowest interpretation, and it is a product, as in that case, of a marketing mentality. That has nothing to do with what Mother's Day was intended to be, and that's what I want to start with today, the history of Mother's Day and the original Mother's Day proclamation. In 1870, women who were the mothers of fallen soldiers from the South got together with the mothers of fallen soldiers from the North. Of course, we're talking about the American Civil War. And they declared that they wanted to create a Congress of women who would meet once a year and determine that peace would be found. It was written by Julia Ward Howe, and Julia Ward Howe wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. So these were amazing women, as you can imagine. So I want to read you, first of all, the original Mother's Day proclamation. I came upon this years ago, and I started putting it out there, and then I noticed more women were putting it out there. Now I think it's reached a kind of critical mass. You see it a lot on Mother's Day, which is great. It's an important thing to revisit, to really think about, and it will be really the ground of a larger conversation I wish to have with you. The Mother's Day Proclamation, Boston, 1870. Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of tears, say firmly. We will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us, reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence vindicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own kind the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a general council of women, without limit of nationality, may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient, and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. Written by Julia Ward Howe in 1870, a statement reflecting the coming together of mothers who had lost their sons for the North and mothers who had lost their sons for the South. Think today of the mothers who have lost sons for Ukraine, mothers who have lost sons for Russia, mothers who have lost their children in Gaza, and mothers who have lost their children in Israel. If the women of the world truly rose up, we could overthrow the dominant paradigm of war making with a new and transformed world in which the dominant paradigm of international and national relations is peace creation. This idea of what Mother's Day has become, there was a woman named Anna Jarvis, and she was the one who worked so hard to get Mother's Day to be a national holiday. And the fact that it's a national holiday is good in that we can revisit what all of this means. You know, I often tell myself, other generations didn't owe you anything. It's so easy for us to say, yeah, well, look what capitalism has done to it. It's all about flowers and brunches. Well, if there's something in the past that was an arc of devolution, let's reclaim. Let's reclaim that which needs to be reclaimed. Let's restore that which needs to be restored. You know, my mother used to tell me when I was young about how a woman's responsibility was taking care of the children, taking care of her home. I thought that was kind of regressive when my mother said it, but it took me decades to realize that there's an archetype here of care for our children, which means everybody's child, and our common home, which means the earth itself. And that is the maternal, by the way, whether it's in a woman or in a man, or whatever the sexual, the gender, or whatever. And it has nothing to do necessarily with whether or not people have raised children. When I think of the women who were the godmothers to my daughter, many women today have performed a motherly role, whether or not they themselves had children. And for us to think about that on a very deep level, what is the responsibility of that? I don't think we can be true to the entire notion of motherhood right now, unless and until we expand it to mean every woman's child, everybody's child. And, you know, if you look at the 20th century, which was the most violent on record, far more women and children died in war than soldiers did. Look what's happening right now. But none of this is going to change until we change it. So I hope that you yourself, it's all over the internet, or you can look at my Substack, you can look at, find it wherever you want, the original Mother's Day proclamation. Let's not just identify with the problems, let's identify with the problem solvers, past and present. Think of what it meant for those women and the seriousness with which they expressed themselves in that original Mother's Day proclamation. If you're a mother, you might want to read it aloud to your daughters. This is our time. Those were some deep women who came up with that. Let us be deep too. And let's do what they suggested. A general council, a congress of women coming together, dedicated to peace. And I just want to say that part of the tragedy in Israel and Palestine right now is how many people have been and are continuing to do this work, so pushed aside, so peripheralized now. May it be restored, regenerated, revitalized. All the world will be a more beautiful place. Happy Mother's Day.